Um, Before we start, I'm still going to request us to please take the seats in the center. Please, let's take the seats in the center. These peripheral spaces are not ours to occupy. The people at the very... Thank you. It feels so lonely here, seriously. So I'm really asking you to please take the seats in the center. Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome to our second day of our International Humanities Conference under the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. Before we begin, these keys were left at the registration desk, so if they are yours, please. Okay, I know the owner now. Thanks a lot for being here, and we look forward to a beautiful day today with great debates and conversations around humanities and social sciences, around global studies, cultural studies, area studies, and the things that we're interested in as people within the humanities and social sciences cluster. So this morning we will begin with a keynote address, and just before we begin, we have places of convenience at the end of this building. Just use the aisles and you'll see a corridor on your left, and you'll find places of convenience for both men and women and those with disability. Just use the aisles and you'll find a corridor somewhere at your left. The very first corridor at your left should take you to the places of convenience. My name is Isaac Kiza Tibasima. I teach in the Department of Literature. I'll be the MC for this event, and I'm going to request Dr. Edgar Taylor and Professor Nakanyike to please come and take up their seats on the platform.
First, I'm Edgar Taylor from the Department of lecturer in the Department of History, Archaeology, and Heritage Studies. And part of the reason it's an honor is that, as I've said to many people, Professor Musisi is the primary reason why I'm here at Makerere, having introduced me as a graduate student, a master's student to this university. And she is Professor of African History at the University of Toronto, a former director of MISER, and most importantly, an alumnus of Makerere, and has published widely numerous articles and chapters that are essential reading, each of them essential reading in women, gender, should I use this one? Hello? I should use this one, or? I'll continue with whichever microphone seems to be working. So, but as I was saying, she's the author of numerous articles and chapters that are all essential reading in the history of women, gender, and the state in African pre-colonial and colonial pasts. And I'll just name some of them because those who are unfamiliar should really seek them out. The Politics of Perception and Perception as Politics, Colonial and Missionary Representations of Baganda Women, 1900 to 1945. Gender and the Cultural Construction of Bad Women, quote unquote, in the Development of Kampala Chibuga. Morality as Identity, the Missionary Moral Agenda in Buganda, 1877 to 1945. A Personal Journey into Custom, Identity, Power, and Politics, researching the writing and life and times of Buganda's Queen Mother, Irene Drusilla Namaganda, 1896 to 1957. Women, Elite Polygyny, and Buganda State Formation. The Environment, Gender, and the Development of Unequal Relations in Buganda, a Historical Perspective. Gender and Sexuality in African History. The list goes on, and these are all really amazing and important works. In addition, she's also written on higher education in Africa, co-authoring Makerere University in Transition, 1993 to 2000, Opportunities and Challenges. She's working on a book manuscript, currently Duty and Desire, biography of Queen Mother Irene Drusilla Namaganda. And most importantly, or I should say least importantly, we have co-authored 3 booklets on critical thinking, academic writing, and plagiarism, which I was very pleased to have the opportunity to work with Professor Musisi on. So it is really an honor for Makerere to welcome her back and to hear from her on this really what's going to be a really wonderful talk, Unstoppable Scholarly Activism and Paradigmatic, oops, I've just been, Paradigmatic Transitions in the Humanities and Social Sciences, Refusal and Theory as Theory and Praxis. So please help me in welcoming Professor Musisi to give her talk today. Thank you.
and other related activities aimed at historicizing the humanities and social sciences at Makerere since 1922. I also take this opportunity to pay tribute to the former Buganda Prime Minister or Katikiro, Martin Luther Nsibirwa, who tragically lost his life in defense of securing additional land on which this institution has resided over these 100 years. I am honored and humbled by the love and warmth. Yesterday I really wanted to cry that I have been shown in welcoming me back to Makerere. This is not what I expected. I thank you all very much for keeping me in your thoughts. To be honest, I was not only overwhelmed by the invitation from Josephine to deliver this keynote, but equally so by the college's generosity in getting me here. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I am intellectually excited and inspired to share my thoughts with you this morning. My talk is composed of 4 parts. In part 1, I'll lay out the conceptual framework that guides the talk. Then I'll move to address some key paradigmatic transitions and innovations with some relevant examples, basically, like looking at the turns in the social sciences and humanities, and we'll look at briefly the methodological breakthroughs. Following that, I will take a position that irrespective of their importance in providing foundational knowledge and understanding of Africa, the humanities and social sciences are often neglected by many African governments, as well as good interventions that fund higher education. I pose the question of what if this was not the case that of our countries? I'll end by highlighting an example of Makerere's past success in this area, as well as proposing a way forward to propel Makerere's innovative achievements into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to use the conceptual framework that was popularized by Audra Simpson in the Mohawk Interrupters. So this talk employs the cultural anthropologist's concept of refusal, particularly as advanced by, like Audra Simpson, and her work is 2014. It's a book that you should really look at, it talks about the Mohawks and on the border between the US and Canada. I will use this, conceptual framework to explore the paradigmatic transitions, or what the framers of this conference have called knowledge revolutions. I'm more particularly interested in the second, or that the revolution in the middle, the framers of the conference call the cultural, revolution. I don't believe that that it is over and that we have moved on. I still believe that this, revolution or transition is still ongoing, and maybe what we can do as scholars is to ask ourselves, where does my work fit within this transition? So I'll use this, to look at these transitions and how these transitions have impacted university practices and transformed teaching and research in the humanities and social sciences. So the concept refusal, like as we see it there, it's really, refusal, but refusal is beyond just no. Refusal is premeditated. Refusal engages the mind. Refusal asks us to think outside the box. Refusal is not accident, but it is purposeful, premeditated. So let me say, to cultural anthropologists, refusal is not only no, it is generative, it is creative, it is a portent that connotes an end to something and a beginning to something new. It produces or reproduces communities. It rejects hierarchical relationships to configure and create a new different relationships. Within this understanding, refusal permits an alternative vision of not only doom, but also a more optimistic future as it exemplifies both limits and possibilities. So, we cannot talk about Makerere only in doom terms. We are gone. We cannot talk about the African universities. If we use this concept, we have to search for generative, how the refusal, to be the institutions that were created in 1922 to the institution that is now in 2022, we have refused something, and in the process of refusing, we are, reproducing, producing as much as we are producing. At the same time, refusal is strategic. It is not accidental. It's not a random act, but rather it's measured, premeditated, and conscious. It is unhurried action. It's a step toward one thing, one belief, and practice. And here, what I really want us to take, it is conscious. We don't wake up in the middle of the night at Makerere and say we are going to have colleges. People have sat in meetings, and they have, in meetings, in planning, there is a planning, and please respect, the planning and the brains that have thought outside the box, of the institution as it was created. While cultural anthropologists caution us not to see refusal as simply a response to authority or revised, modernized version of resistance, refusal is as much about recognition and about the social as it is about the political. Above all, in Simpson's lexicon, it is about not authorizing others to define us. Not authorizing others to define and determine the conditions of engagement. It is instead about individuals refusing identities, restrictive structures, and systems. Moreover, it's a gauge. It's a gauge that indicates a limit that has been reached for something to continue in a certain or particular way, and it is also a methodology. So if we see it as a gauge, we have had enough. You are not defining who we are. You are not going to sit in your places of, privilege and so on and start defining and killing the spirit, the innovative spirits or spirit that is at Makerere. Makerere is going to continue defining its perimeters and how it goes about its business. Ladies and gentlemen, the concept refusal allows me, from that perspective, the concept refusal allows me to do three things. First, to search and document scholarly or intellectual activism's productive and subversive elements, particularly ways through which the humanities and social sciences scholarship has refocused beyond the knowledge revolutions to imagine a different future. Second, it allows me to map out how these subversive elements navigated and can navigate between different sites of power as well as knowledge production. In government, and these sites are government, communities, activists, social movements, donors, and any other, a site of power that, we are navigating. So it allows me to do that, to advance knowledge and curricula that speaks or spoke to histories of lived experiences and of subjugated and marginalized. Third, it allows me to point to strategies and future possibilities of how a development university in Africa could continue to play its cardinal role against all odds, including neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is like colonialism. We have to live with it as we lived 66 or 60-something years with colonialism. We have to live with neoliberalism until another. But we are not going to give up our hands as Makerere University and stop to function because we are in a neoliberal university. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to argue that the paradigmatic transitions, or what Josephine and her group called knowledge revolutions in the humanities and sciences, have not only been revolutionary, they present a window for the ivory tower or the development university to re-image its role in the present and in the future, positing a complex re-evaluation between theory and praxis. Key to my argument is that these paradigmatic transitions propelling the politics of refusal have been crucial in igniting decolonial and emancipation efforts at Makerere, often interrupting colonial knowledge specificities, certainties, and confidences by tampering with the processes and mediums through which knowledge was and continues to be produced and packaged. And how research is conducted, teaching and learning, as well as governance of the institution. These paradigmatic transitions are unstoppable as they continue to suggest alternatives to colonial and contemporary problematics, such as unequal gender relations, development quagmire, migrations, including the contemporary problematic labor export to the Middle East, or what in Uganda called the kadamas, and et cetera, et cetera. So, I now turn to the second part of my talk, which is Refusal's pragmatic transitions, and I see that they have been, they have been grouped as 4 turns, but I think now, I'm looking at 4 turns, but there are more turns. I think the literature is coming up with more turns. I'll start off that with the end, by the end, of the 1980s and beginning with the 1990s. You know, like this period ushered in major shifts in the social sciences and humanities. And these new shifts were the emergence of postmodernism, poststructuralism theories, which gave rise, among others, to cultural studies. Visibility of post-colonial or post-structuralism influence in the works of Africanists was manifested in their studies' commitment to one or the other emerging turns in the social sciences and humanities. These were the spatial turns, linguistic turn, or discursive, or the memory turn, and the identity politics, or what Simon Susan, has called or described as the autonomous turn. By this autonomous turn, Susan refers to the paradigmatic transition that underscores the normative significance of relentless search for different forms of autonomy pursued by both individual and collective actors. Thus, the turns in turn opened new areas of inquiry, such as the female body, the emotions. I'm going to use sanitized language today, beyond my usual. So the emotions, the construction of historical memory, while also drawing attention to the shifting, multiple, and often conflicting ways in which societies, women, men, women and men and systems have developed ethnic or nationalistic and exclusionary groups, or even gendered identities. Attention to language and discourse led to questioning of earlier and outdated historical or contemporary certainties about lived experiences. The nature of the subaltern, especially women's subordination, the use of normative concepts such as women, as well as the popularization of the concept gender, ethnicity instead of tribe, to denote the socially constructed nature, the social and politically constructed nature of naturalized characteristics of identities, of both men, Baganda, Muganda, and all of that. A shift occurred from simply documenting the material conditions, which earlier scholars had been doing, the Marxists of the 1970s, the 70s, the Marxist scholarship of the 1970s and earlier 60s and so on, which they had been, doing, so this shift, there is a shift from just documenting the material and trying to understand the material conditions and the relationships that develop out of those material conditions, like of the subaltern or the subjugated or the othered lives, towards an interest in representation, in symbolism, in discourse, and the text, or even the archive. When we cease to see the archive as that place that people go to get, what is stored there as the ultimate truth. And liberate, archive from space and location. Innovative work followed, and some of which analyzed the body as a text, as social object and a terrain for inscription and exercise of colonial and political power. The body is a text. When we read the bodies, for some people, they have marks, they have whatever. These are texts, and they cannot be taken as beauty. When I have lipstick, and I have, the mascara, and I have those blinker, what do you call these girls? the lashes, and so that is a text. Read my body, as I am today as a text. What language is it talking? What messages is it giving? The body ceases to be the contemporary body. The body becomes a text, a social object, a terrain for the inscription and exercise of colonial and political power. This literature examined the impact of colonial ideologies, including Christianity. My colleague, Derek Peterson, Professor Derek Peterson's work, this work, the Christianity, education, writing, as well as the transformative power of colonial material culture from clothing to biomedicine, to those weighing machines for the babies, those, the maternal clinics. The best illustration of the latter, of this biomedicine, is Nancy Hart's beautiful work. If you have not read it, I would recommend that you read it, the Colonial Lexicon. Which examined objects, rituals, and customs surrounding birthing in Congo to construct and reveal surrounding birthing in the Congo, to reconstruct and reveal the historical irony, the real irony of reproductive life and its meaning. Ladies and gentlemen, when we move into the spatial turn, that's where my, the Kibuga, the wicked women, in the development of Kampala Kibuga, when we look at the spatial turn, on the one hand, it infused historical, sociological, geographical, and anthropological writings and analysis with new dynamism. So we have not thrown the baby with the bath water. So the baby still is in there, but we are progressing on. It is infusing with new dynamism that located agency in spaces. And I think I have given, examples of, the books, Howard's book, which was produced in 2005, articulates the spatial analysis as an organic perspective, which in the hands of Africanists, or African historians, geographers, and anthropologists, political scientists, and so on, can offer new viewpoints on topics such as state formation, slavery, religion, trade, and commerce. Other works, for instance, have shown for the deeper pre-colonial past how gender played out among hunters, gatherers, and herders and state builders in the frontier politics of groups, whether they are clans, whether they are, related or they are not related, occupying vast areas of the Great Lakes region. And here my colleagues, David Schonbrun's work is a must for everybody in this region to read if you really want to understand the contemporary Great Lakes region. I think this work must be read. Still other scholars who investigated ritual or ritual sites, that it doesn't work. Oh, okay. So I thought my voice was, okay. So still other scholars who investigated ritual sites discovered that these sites were not innocent sites. Spaces are not innocent sites. They are not innocent religious spaces, but rather spaces where fecundity or fecundity struggles were waged by both kings, lineage leaders, and lineage leaders to gain control of resources and women's authority. Ladies and gentlemen, when we move to the discursive turn, on the other hand, it called for recognition of words of utterances, of language, of texts as constituting a form of social action, which is that words act. Words are not empty. Words are social actions. So grasping the meaning of words necessitates understanding their concept, their context, as well as intended effect for which they are deployed. Not only what is said, but also the work of what is said does. For example, some studies have shown that observational words used in the colonial context often carried with them Western ideological assumptions and arrogancy, fear and ignorance, and always the need to control the subjugated, often circumscribing or negating women or particular ethnic groups' economic chances or activities, mobility and political power and institutions and status in their respective societies. For more recent studies, for example, feminist scholarship in particular has called our attention to the need to connect the nation and the state feminist challenges to those on other feminists, of other feminists globally. So here going into, the globalization. The main concern has been, two main discursive manifestations. One, manifestations of neoliberal co-optation of, feminism. Feminism has been hijacked. And many of you, the views of feminism that you have are actually corrupted versions of feminism. The feminism that has been co-opted by neoliberal, ideology. First, the growth of the modern, moderate race-based discourse, and second, the co-optation and adulteration of, gender research. And in the paper, I go through the downside of this kind of, discourse. So interrogating the socio-political context within which particular discourses are created or uttered, discourse analysis is not driven by empiricists' drive to uncover the truth about women, racialized peoples, or other marginalized groups, but rather to investigate how meanings are produced within narrative accounts. For instance, fascinating investigations and analysis of Kadongo Kamu, or hip-hop songs. They reveal subversive messaging that stem from certain discourses, particularly those that that emphasize support, love, protection for queer, for example, for queer or transgender people, and those that live in ghettos, like Bobby Wine's work, really, is messaging, political messaging, for the ghetto, inhabitants, or people who live on the margins of society. For the memory turn called attention to how social groups or individuals, including historians and psychologists, legal experts, and so on, constructed their past. And particularly what was recalled and what was silenced, and to what end. We have to problematize memory, or problematizing memory has allowed for the spotlighting of the processes of the construction of the past and a nuanced articulation as well as reinterpretation of moral and political concerns. The growing stream of the literature, that dwells on, a memory also leads us into more new and innovative methodological challenges of using, memory as source, memory as text, and memory as an analytical tool. Last but not least, using the autonomous stand, humanities and social scientists, scholars confronted normative issues that assumed a homogeneity of group identities. For example, Ugandan, Buganda, Musoga, Basoga, woman, these, the Europeans, British, so any, any of those homogenized, group identities, including the category woman. I have shared my thoughts about woman, how in one moment I'm a woman, and when I step out, I can be a man. And so therefore, even this, concept, and I can be a man, without losing anything. I don't cut off my breasts, so I don't import that other stuff that you understand. This work shows how such categories were socially and historically constituted and rejects universalized accounts of citizenship that marginalized and disadvantaged women and particular men. Okay, so those are the terms. We can now talk about the methodological breakthroughs that these paradigmatic transitions have given us. Inasmuch as scholarship of social sciences and humanities scholarship continues to adhere to older social science and humanities research methodologies, to varying degrees, this scholarship questions, rejects, and or modifies these investigative methodological traditions. At the same time, this scholarship is popularizing new and hybrid methods, and more importantly, gradually leading to a move away from structuralist to post-structuralist conceptions of social sciences and humanities research and methodological agendas. Particularly challenged is the empiricist model, which claims objectivity, that our research is value-free and therefore it is neutral, and obscures the politics of research, the identification of discoverable natural laws, like, for example, Marxism, gives us the laws, that if we follow those laws, then there will be, a struggle, proletarian struggle. So, it challenges those, and therefore, Marxism, we now move from Marxist as, propounded by Karl Marx, to postmodernist Marxism, which takes into, account these other changes. So the laws, it challenges natural laws, that you can develop a methodology, and that methodology can work and can deliver exactly the same, results in another societies. Okay, so universality or universalization, linearity for us, historian, that we start with A, B, and then we go to D and X and so on, all of those are challenged. Historians, we are slow to even get away from chronology, but we are saying you can still marry chronology with themes. You can still do thematic, chronological work thematically. So we are building, all these transitions are building on that. Scholarship within the new paradigms also critiques experimental methods, particularly their inherent reductionism and the artificial context of research and interpretation. This is mostly for those ones who are in psychology. You know, like the impetus to revolutionize disciplinary traditions emerges out of the liberationist research goals and aspirations, which by putting the oppressed or the disadvantaged, gender, the poor, at the center of analysis, seeks to expose omissions, silences, androcentric biases and distortions in the current knowledge, and to challenge normative beliefs and understandings that are largely based on misinformation. The goal is to provide alternative knowledge and ways of knowing capable of addressing inequalities and empower the, the marginalized and the subjugated, and thus transforming society. This is very important for us as social scientists and humanities scholars. Our research should aim at transforming society. In the process, this scholarship, which is essentially multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary in nature, is marked by innovative and versatile methods. We can go into the different, versatilities in this area. But we can also say that although necessarily recent, we have all these methods, from standpoint to, autoethnographic, theory and autoethnographic methodology, as an example. So methodologically, this scholarship working within the new paradigm rejects or questions a single narrative. Say, for example, for us who do gender, patriarchy or ethnicity as a single, explanation of oppression or inequality. This has led, to, us searching for, multiple, intersecting factors that influence social-cultural systems that constrain the marginalized groups and lived experiences and sustain individual or group disempowerment. Among other methods that have come, up is really photographs or photo voice, approaches. We used to use photographs as demonstration. They call it see and tell or show and tell. Stop using pictures in your work as show and tell. Look at the angle, the eye, the dress, the position, who is taking the, the whatever. There is a lot of politics. Even, so the picture, that the new method, the methodology is photo voice. Retreat or recover, or these methods are recovering the photo voices or aesthetics approaches among, some of these, methodological and theoretical breakthroughs. So Nanyonga, I don't think she's here today, but also performative arts, the body and so on, all of those, they require new methodological, approaches. Okay, so if you can allow me, I can now turn to my third part of the talk, that is looking at the pressing challenges or challenge for the humanities and social sciences. I commence from the position, from a very strong belief that in any given country, there ought to be an intimate relationship between humanities and social sciences knowledge and development, social, economic, and political. Nonetheless, the most pressing challenge for the humanities and social science research is its limited appreciation outside academic circles. Basically, the biggest challenge is its inability so far to be deployed in service of social change or impact policy formulation. This challenge emerges out of the fact that the relationship between scholars' research, communities beyond field work, and governments is very much underdeveloped in most African countries and non-existent in some. Scholars in our disciplines have a pathetic history of lobbying governments or the end users of their research products. We go to them, we sit with them, we chat with them. We don't lobby them. We don't lobby, like we don't lobby government, we don't lobby, like the people that we research. We owe them a debt. They have given us their knowledge. How are we going to use their knowledge to change their situations? If I may ask, how many of you would be content with going through the rigors of research only to have your article or book sit in a shelf, like somewhere in a library to be accessed, like by academics only? Very few. Who will be content with that? Only one who is actually looking for promotion and tenure. But if you sit and you define yourself, I'm happy where I am, and you define yourself, but you say, I'm going to work for 10 years that I took off to come and be here at Makerere. I lost tenure. I didn't lose tenure, I lost promotion. 10 years. But if you say, okay, the books, the articles will be read. I'm glad that my old articles still make sense. What we need to do is that really, go beyond just promotion and tenure to also see, where else our work can make, an impact. So, a few questions, because it's the common occurrence in our discipline that actually we produce these books, then we get known by these books or by these articles that we produce, but we need a few questions, or they emerge a few questions out of this situation. What emerges out of this challenge is, how do we seize the opportunity to feed research, to feed our research findings into local, regional, national, and continental debates? How can we harness humanities research power to empower our communities, our countries, our regions with knowledge for tomorrow? Basically, how do we move forward as intellectual activists? These questions lead me into the fourth and last part of my speech. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to revisit Makerere, or the I at Mac program that I was privileged to be part of, and which our Vice Chancellor also was part of. This program ran from 2000 to 2009 as an example to make my point and show how feasible, as well as to propose a new forward to push Makerere's past innovative achievements into the future. I at Mac, or as we called it, Innovations at Makerere, like the I could be Innovations at Makerere, or it could be I as the scholar at Makerere. What is my responsibility? The philosophy and activities of the founding committee of the I at Mac were guided by two ultimate questions. First, how best can we make Makerere relevant? Will you excuse me? I just get my... best can we make, the university education relevant to the needs, needs of society? The second question was, how can we harness the transformations at Makerere for the greater cause of the nation, the marginalized, and the dispossessed? For those who are new to Makerere, allow me to say that initially, the planning committee of 14 comprised of 7 deans and directors from Makerere and 7 members from government. And the C14, as we called it, was soon institutionalized and evolved into an innovations committee at Makerere, dubbed as I at Mac. The committee was to mobilize the whole university to actively engage in innovative research aimed at more than creating knowledge for knowledge's sake, by devising innovations to solve particular problems at the local and international level. The committee encouraged teamwork across disciplinary ventures within the gender mainstreaming spirit of the university. So we are building on the successes that the university had already, put in place. In collaboration with 5 others, other universities, district councils, and the private sector, Fountain publishers, and others, and the private sector, Makerere was set on the road of innovation for a decade. This was an electrifying 5 minutes? Okay. So, okay. So the IATMAC, with hindsight, I can say that the IATMAC program provides numerous examples of what is feasible if a university is serious in harnessing its research power to empower communities. And I could have given, an example of the MACAPAD, where the Women's Studies program, networked with the technology and the School of Education, and we developed a sanitary towel, that the girls could produce at their schools, but also we are moving into another stage whereby we were going to take the soiled sanitary towel to agriculture, for agriculture to develop, fertilizers, chemistry and agriculture. So I could have given you, several, examples, but, so let me say that at core are some key indispensable strategies that I at Mac used. Permit me only to mention 7. 1, identifying and keeping in constant dialogue with stakeholders and developing enabling partnerships. 2, strongly recognize that there is no single discipline or sector that has unique pathway to success. We have to continue into multidisciplinary, work. 3rd, to ensure a section of prioritizing innovative research methods that are more inclusive in their design and diffusion process. 4, at an early stage, we have to make attempts to identify and mobilize and deploy both dynamic men and men as champions to support, the work that we are doing. 5th, to remain vigilant in pursuing creative, diffusion, methods. We have to use multiple, dissemination outlets and packaging of, our results. Not only journal articles and books, but what else can we produce? 6, and one secret was to capitalize on multiple trajectories of socio-economic political transformations that are already. And last, the secret is lobby. So from the intellectual scholarly activist positionality, the one key lesson that I learned from IATMAC program is that if through our research we are to contribute to building models that are sustainable, if our research results are to support programs with foresight, if we are to intellectually invest in the models and theories that empower girls, boys, men, women, other marginalized groups, societies, and our countries at large, rather than disadvantage them, then we need to remain vigilant in recognizing the fact that there is no one single right path to research. Innovation will have to remain, like a cornerstone of, like our work. Okay, so like these would have been, like the achievements of IATMAC. We were able to, like attract $19.6 million over that 10-year period. More than 300 research projects were carried out. We sponsored 89 master's program research degrees and 20 PhDs because 5 years and 5 years, we had 10 people in the first cohort and then 10 people in the second cohort. We had more than 10,000 students were supported through internship. Internship has become a cornerstone of Makerere University's education. More than 30 books were published, and many of my colleagues got promoted out of these books. We supported more than 100 workshops on research methodologies and writing, and we developed 2 model villages, one in Arua and another in, like Rakai, which had been devastated by HIV/AIDS. We also started, like a journal, and the program was evaluated. Most World Bank or supported World Bank programs are a failure. But ours, was, highly satisfied. If you can Google it and you can see. So we went beyond, like what was, expected. For example, like we went beyond, like the quantifiable key performance indicators. So for example, where we had thought we would train only 9, we trained 32, and like the percentage, the success was 350%, 356%. So we have, like identifiable, like indicators. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I'll conclude by stating the obvious, that today on the African continent, generating innovative knowledge with humanities and social sciences, included, or taking the central stage is pertinently relevant as concerns such as intercultural ethnic tolerance, understanding an urgent need for the preservation of cultural heritage and history, environmental renewal, economic mismanagement, a broader understanding of the effects of wars, migration, deadly viruses, and infections, mental disorders, re-emerging, as all of these are re-emerging, particularly re-emerging despotism as well as colonialism and other evils, challenges are increasingly coming to the fore. These challenges cannot be solved by science alone. It is common knowledge that successful countries have had a balance between humanities and, and social science, between sciences, science and social sciences and humanities. For this to happen, if humanities was, to reclaim, if we are to reclaim and take a center stage, as well as to be made, to stand alongside the sciences, 2 things are crucial. One and foremost, recognizing our attention, or recognizing and refocusing our attention with new insights about the relationship between knowledge and politics in general. Second, perceiving and packaging our work as Makererians in a significantly different way than scholars in the past have done. So today, as we take the stock of yesterday, we should recommit ourselves to producing knowledge that positively inform not only the tomorrow we want to see, but will equip and nurture present and future generations to cherish and protect integrity, protectiveness, radical consciousness, and diligence as they struggle to build more equitable and durable social and political economic institutions, as well as relationships to enable humanity's physical and spiritual well-being. A famous German philosopher, Goethe Henrik, once said, "Thinking and doing is the sum of all wisdom." Let us begin our next 100-year journey with this in mind. I would like to end my speech by reiterating my gratitude to the college and Makerere at large for organizing this conference. I thank the past and present professors, lecturers, students, administrators, support staff, and external friends for their dedication. Derek, we thank you for your dedication in keeping, institution, alive and vibrant, and, advocating for the realization of the importance of history, of humanities, of anthropology, of social sciences disciplines in the development of our country. Your labors and gifts have enabled tangible results we are seeing and celebrating today. Okay, so long live the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, and I thank you all for your kind attention, and I wish you all good deliberations for the remainder of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that wonderful and talk which covered so much ground and has given us so much to think with as we move into the sessions today. I would just ask that we again thank Professor Musisi. And we now are, I think, midway through our break, but we will, the sessions will be carrying on all day, and I hope this has energized us to have more conversations and discussions around these critical issues. So thank you all, and thank you again, Professor Musisi. Yeah, thank you. So the sessions begin at 10:30, so we now have a short break. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nakanyike, for that. I love the way you concluded with the 100 years ahead, and it's amazing to be here in this 100th year. I'm looking forward to the next years. I see my principal excited. We are going to have a tea break between now and for the next 30 minutes. Like I said, our places of convenience, just use the aisles, and the very first corridor on your left should have the gents and the ladies, and it's the same on the 4th floor. We have sent to every participant an email indicating which rooms we're going to use, but there's also Zoom links that have been sent to every participant. So please check your emails. I am much sure that those links are in there. For panels and sessions in A, we will use this auditorium space. For panels in session B, we are going to use the Choose Smart Room. There's going to be a coaster here that should transport you to the Choose Smart Room in the Choose building. For all panels with C, you are going to be in room 4.1 in this building. And for all panels in session D, you are going to use the conference room on the 5th floor of this building. I would like to repeat this. All sessions A shall be in this room. All sessions B shall be in the Choose Smart Room. All sessions C shall be in room 4.1 in this building. And all sessions D will be in the conference room on the 5th floor of this building. So please look at the program, look at what's been prepared for us, and we look forward to great conversations and great debates around arts and humanities and the social sciences. You're welcome to tea in the next 30 minutes, and see you then. Thank you.